all our distinguished speakers for those really powerful opening remarks. I have now the great honor to welcome His Excellency Dr. Lazarus McCarthy Chakwera to deliver his presidential address. Dr. Chakwera, President, you're welcome.
Would you all stand for a minute and just stretch?
Drop.
Merci beaucoup. Your Excellencies, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, though I'm no prophet, apostle, I have been requested to tell you what I think will happen in the future and how you can prepare for it. And as soon as I was assigned this task, I wondered if I should proceed with caution, because an old philosopher named Chesterton already warned us that there is a certain obsession with the future that comes from our fear of facing the past. But when I learned that the African political outlook was going to be here in Belgium, and also that its opening day would be at the African Museum, I knew that I was in no danger, because no African who is afraid to confront the past comes to Brussels or enters a museum. So allow me to submit that they are three forces of the future. Or let's say three brushes that will be used to paint the future for all of us. When I look back to the day I was sworn in as Malawi's 6th president in June of 2020, and when I scan the journey I traveled from that day until when I left office last October, I see so many events I did not know were coming in the future. I did not anticipate how devastating COVID-19 would be 6 months into my presidency. I didn't know, or rather I did not anticipate that Malawi would be hit by 2 tropical storms back to back a year later. I did not anticipate that 3 weeks after that, a strain of polio from Pakistan would enter Malawi and infect a little girl, thus ending a stretch of 30 years in which Malawi had been polio-free. A polio-free status that took us 2 years of aggressive vaccination and awareness campaigning to restore. I did not anticipate that a week after that, the war between Russia and Ukraine would break out here in Europe, disrupting global supply chain by which Malawi accesses critical fuels, fertilizers, pharmaceuticals, all of which doubled or tripled in price overnight and continued to rise until the day I left office. I also didn't know that a week after that war broke out, the worst cholera outbreak in Malawi's history would start, which I had to declare a public health emergency by the end of the year because it spread to every district and was killing more people than COVID did. I did not anticipate either that only 3 months after that declaration, I would have to declare a state of national disaster as Malawi would be hit by Cyclone Freddy, the worst climate disaster in Malawi's history. Destroyed everything in its path across the southern region of Malawi, killing over 2,000 people, leaving over 500,000 homeless, dismantling billions of dollars worth of economic and public service infrastructure, and washing away a year's worth of food. I didn't know either that a year after that, I would have to declare another state of disaster after El Nino drought conditions destroyed almost half of Malawi's food crops and left over 5 million people facing hunger. And I did not know that less than 6 months after that, a military airplane carrying my vice president would crash and kill him and 8 other officials, triggering a nationwide conspiracy theory about the cause of the crash, which continued to spread throughout the election cycle and continues to play out in Malawi to this very day. So we all must accept that the first brush that is painting the future for all of us is the hand of God. Which brings many things into our path that none of us can foresee or predict. And there's nothing you can do to prevent those things. So when they happen, you must do your best to respond to them with dignity. Do your best to make things lighter for those who suffer the most. Do your best to not make things worse by succumbing to bitterness. And do your best to accept the outcome with humility and civility, without believing in the lie that those unpleasant outcomes have happened as a result of your failure. You may be flawed, as President Mandela once said, but you are not a failure. The second brush that is painting our future is the people we associate with, by circumstance or by choice. Now, this is an area that you can do something about. By the simple act of being here at this summit, you have chosen to associate with the delegates who have gathered here. And you never know what role they will play in shaping what happens to you tomorrow. I was here in Brussels, February 2022, to attend the AU-EU summit. And one of the things that I and other heads of state negotiated was a change in the nature of the relationship between the African Union and the European Union. From a donor-recipient relationship to a partnership of equals, which we then embodied in the Global Gateway package that included 150 billion euros for Africa's green transition. But because I was here in person and made certain associations, during this trip this week, I have been able to go back to the European Parliament, make recommendations to the leadership here or there on how that package can be leveraged and managed better going forward or moving forward. So do not underestimate the power of associations and bridge building. I know that there is a new geopolitical attitude trampling through Western democracies right now, and to try and destroy alliances and create a new world in which everyone only cares about themselves and where the most powerful can just go around the world taking from other countries what they want. But that is a movement doomed to fail, and a movement we should resist. And the way to resist it is to continue forming alliances that are constructive, to counter the spirit of the age, which really is an old spirit. It's an old spirit of King Leopold. Trying to make a comeback. It is doomed to fail because the human spirit hungers for connection and collaboration, not isolation and imposition. And it is also doomed to fail because the world is irreversibly interconnected now, not only through advances in international travel and telecommunication technologies, but also through global financial and logistical systems that bind us together. This means that anyone who tries to walk in this world as a lone wolf and act as though they don't need anyone else is engaging in delusions, and will soon find out they cannot go very far on any continent without needing allies. We all need each other. So I want to commend the organizers of this summit for being part of the resistance. And I believe that this investment in building national, regional, and global alliances is going to create a better future for all of us than burning bridges today, which we all need to cross to safety when the waters rise tomorrow. That is also why I accepted the Commonwealth's appointment to serve as its special envoy to Tanzania, where this past year they had an election which was not as peaceful and orderly as I managed to facilitate in Malawi. So we are going to see if we can help them build the bridges that have been broken there. But I'm not going there just for their sake, but also to help all of us, because broken solidarity anywhere in Africa is a threat to solidarity everywhere in Africa. So we must value these alliances and associations that are geared towards progress and protect them jealously. After all, Africa is the last continent that should be participating in anyone's proxy war. So letting big countries in the East or West play us against each other. We cannot afford that, and we don't have time for that. Africa is already behind in its developmental and economic progress, largely because we have not yet found the secret sauce for working closely together on everything that affects us across that continent. We still have not agreed to open up the borders across the continent to ease movement. We still do not have a common payment system that connects traders across the continent. Africa is in bad, and others are doing their best, as demonstrated last year in Abuja, Nigeria. We still have not consolidated air travel routes and are still most challenged continent to fly to and within. We still have not operationalized the aspirations of the African Continental Free Trade Area. We still have not banded together to protect our precious minerals. We still have not achieved Pan-African solidarity on the migration issue so that we can have a continent in which there are no refugees. Because as far as I'm concerned, an African should be at home everywhere in Africa. And we still have not resolved the conflicts in at least 3 regions. So there is plenty to do that cannot be done without positive and constructive alliances. And that cannot be done when we allow others to distract us from our agenda. So let's continue to build those relationships and alliances, because they will be useful in building the future we want. The third and final brush, that is creating your future, is your ability to learn new ways of doing things. The world is constantly creating new and better ways of doing things. And if you do not invest in learning those ways, your future is going to look very different from someone who invests in their own learning. Artificial intelligence is not something we should be talking about, but something we should be mastering. In China, they're already using AI-generated robots in their textile factories to make fabric. AI is not the future anymore, but a reality we must come to terms with and make provisions for by learning and adapting new skills, new policies, new business models, and new partnerships. The same applies to our approach to development. If the approach to development in Africa has not produced development, then we must learn a new way of doing things, because a broken model repeated will not change the outcomes. The 5 things that African nations like Malawi need investments in order to graduate to middle income status are building modern transport infrastructure, to open up commercial corridors, building new state institutional capacity, to deliver basic public service or services corruption-free and donor-free, building economic and industrial zones that add value to raw materials for export, and building digital technologies into health, education, trade, finance, and local production systems to leapfrog into competitiveness, and building small businesses and the platforms they can use to access markets within the country and across the continent of Africa, so that Africans are doing business with Africans more than with anyone else in order to make their economies resilient to economic shifts in policies or posture in other continents. And yet, these 5 things are not what people who claim they want to invest in Africa are interested in or investing in. Many of the biggest donors to Africa are investing in poverty programs, which end up multiplying poverty several times, humanitarian activities, and not production that leads to prosperity. And I don't believe that this will change until we as Africans, both at home and those in diaspora, begin to make those investments ourselves, to show the world that these are the things that matter to us. We must start putting money where our mouth is. It is not acceptable for a parent to claim that they value the education of their children and go around asking other people for school fees, and yet when that parent has money of their own, they spend it at the salon on a new hairstyle or a latest vehicle that is coming to market. You hear what I'm saying? Our priorities must be evident in our own expenditure and investment. And they must be evident in what we are willing to go with that. The old name of that is sacrifice. Before we go asking others to prioritize those areas. So we need to rethink this developmental formula across the board, and we need to do it now because tomorrow, or before tomorrow comes. Because what you do not master today will master you tomorrow. Well, thank you all for listening, and God bless you.